Name is Jonathan. Thank you for joining us today for the Year 12 Results What's Next webinar. We have Chelsea as well in chat that's going to hopefully provide some helpful links for you as well and answer any questions that you might have as we go. I'll also stick around myself as well as Chelsea at the end of the presentation to kind of go through a few FAQs that everyone might have, or if you want to ask us some questions individually, you can do so as well. I can remind everyone as well, just in the chat function, if you scroll down just to the bottom or just above where the chat message allows you to type in, you can send us private messages as well. So if you need to send something to myself or Chelsea privately, you can do that and no one else will be able to see it. We can just sort of answer those questions as we go. Other than that, I'll just get everyone to get ready and get all sorted and I'll begin. No worries. Now we do have a student that's going to be here with us today. Her name is Celeste Ryan. She will be joining us just at the end of this presentation as well. Hopefully she can provide you with some insight about Flinders University and what kind of things to expect, I guess, at the university as a whole, and any questions you might have about what kind of lifestyle changes, I guess, or university life changes you might want to know about during your time here at Flinders. So with that being said, I'll get started. So, your Year 12 results have been released. So you should have received those as of the 15th of December, which is really great news for everybody. Obviously, if you're in the ACT, New South Wales or Queensland, they do get staggered across Australia. Unfortunately for Queenslanders here that might be joining us today or anyone from WA, those 2 days are in fact a weekend for us. So you can call Flinders on Monday the 21st of December. You can also call us on the 4th of January for any of those students doing IB. We have our phones available from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. as an extended period of time. But that being said, you might be a little bit curious, I guess, about your results and how they all work in regards to university entry. So sort of deciphering what they mean, essentially. Now, your university entry is dependent on a couple of things. Obviously, your prerequisites, which is part of your normal entry requirements. We do expect that prerequisites are subjects that students must complete before they start university. You then have some assumed knowledge bases underneath those. They're generally, or at least on the Flinders website at least, they're listed just underneath your prerequisite knowledge bases. Those are subjects that we assume students should know upon entering the course and will be generally beneficial for you during your time in the course here. Other than that, we also do have some additional entry requirements. Now, those are also actually required to enter your course. So usually a course that has prerequisites will just either have a prerequisite or also some additional entry requirements with those. So some of those do include your creative industries, so things like your auditions or your portfolios. Obviously, if you're looking at doing medicine, you'll be looking at the UCAT. Or if you're looking at doing maybe engineering, there might be like a math prerequisite there as well. Your selection rank will also come into it, and that's what we're kind of looking at when your Year 12 results get released, will be your selection ranks. That's what we kind of look at there. So there are, generally speaking, depending on what kind of course you're applying for, of course, 2 ranks available on the website. So your competitive entry selection rank, which is the one that's generally speaking lower than your guaranteed selection rank, is the rank that we decide is a competitive score for you to enter university. And then there's a guaranteed entry selection rank that can exist depending on the competitiveness of your course. So for example, I believe that the Bachelor of Business has a guaranteed entry rank of 75, but something like paramedic science would just have a competitive entry rank as it's a competitive course. So that being said, some of the other entry requirements that you might be looking at, and sort of a little bit more of an explanation on them, will be your audition, for example, or your dance auditions or your portfolios. Now, a lot of these things, unfortunately, are quite subjective, as is most artwork there. Now, the way we look at your additional entry requirements is actually more to do with how they were assessed, I guess, and whether or not you met the requirements or the statements there. So I know that obviously some sort of courses and some certificate courses that you might do as well will cover things that are just a pass or a fail. You might not get a degree for them, so it's just sort of a, I believe they're not yet competent or competence sometimes as well. So basically, if you've received a pass statement for your course that you're looking to apply for with that portfolio, so like a screen pass statement or a creative writing piece that, again, you received a pass in, that's sort of more what we're looking for, because it is a bit difficult to, or sort of correctly assess someone's skill level just based on one piece or individual. Other than that, your UCAT score for students doing medicine, that's obviously a really, really big one. You obviously have to have that completed for any of those doing medicine before you get to your med entry. And you have to do a teaching capability statement for those looking at doing education. So that is a 400 to 600 word, I think, little internal reflection that you might have to do on 3 specific questions of choice. Now, with those doing prerequisite subjects, so things like the maths, like I mentioned earlier for engineering, you do have to meet a C grade or higher in those prerequisite subjects to be eligible as well. So a lot of students do just need to keep that one in mind, just in case you're looking at doing that. So you might be wondering, I guess, how your results are used for university entry as well, based on your competitive entry rank, for example. So the competitive entry rank is based on the last person who gained entry into this course last year. So for example, let's say we've got the Bachelor of Psychology, right? And we would have grabbed, or we would have said, sorry, so the Bachelor of Psychology has 20 places available, let's just say, sort of pulling a number out of my hat there. The last 20th person that would have gotten into that course from the previous year would have set that new level or bar for the competitive entry rank for university entry. So the 2020 selection rank for education and health sciences is 70, for example, and our guaranteed entry rank is potentially 90 for something else, and that's a little bit different, I guess, between the two. So your competitive entry, like I mentioned earlier, would be something that if you received that, you would know that, yes, okay, I have a reasonable shot at getting in, you know, it's a possibility for me. Whereas guaranteed, you know that is like an absolute guaranteed place. And a lot of students sort of understand that from the get-go, but some students do get a little bit confused, especially on how adjustment factors work with your scores. So do keep in mind that if you've received a score that is competitive but not guaranteed, and you are eligible for any sort of adjustment factors from your Year 12 results as well, give us a call, because that might bring you into the guaranteed entry rank, I guess, category. So keep that in mind as well. So adjustment factors, which I just mentioned, sort of a good segue here, kind of work off a few different things. So you get a maximum of 9 points, of which 5 of those points do exist from the University Equity Scheme. Now, the University Equity Scheme is more based on individual bonuses and merits for certain students and individuals, obviously based on either your school location or any sort of individual bonuses. This might be means-tested income individual as well, or potentially just like if you're a rural student as well. Your essay, language, literacy, and mathematics bonuses scheme is something that everyone can be eligible for, and that's just based on what kind of subjects you can do throughout your time in Year 12. So you can get 20 credits from a language other than English, as well as mathematics methods, specialist mathematics, or any sort of English literacy language studies as well. Now, you can only get a maximum of 2 points from each one, so a maximum of 4 points, as sort of mentioned there. And you do have to keep in mind that those language bonuses for your language, literacy, and mathematics bonus schemes don't go towards things like the clinical sciences Doctor of Medicine, unfortunately. You still can receive 5 equity scheme points from that. And when we give you your adjusted ATAR, specifically for the Doctor of Medicine, that will be including your equity scheme points should you have been eligible to apply for them in the first place. So is there any questions so far before I continue? Fantastic. All right, cool. So moving ahead, we do have some additional Year 12 entry requirements as well. If you did sit the uni test, you should have received your results by now as well. So your results obviously might have been emailed to you from ASA. It is a percentile rank, and there is no disadvantage of doing the uni test. So regardless of your results, we'll be looking at any sort of results that you give us, and whichever one's the most favorable results will give to you or use as your entry rank, essentially. So please keep that in mind, just in case you are using the uni test or using a stat score or your normal Year 12 results or foundation studies program. All of these will give you different ranks, and all of them can mean, different things. There is also the Year 11 grades pathway. Now, conditional offers would have also been emailed to you so far, And obviously to receive your formal offer, though, to your preferred course at Flinders, you'll have to have had that as your first preference, and you'll receive that formal offer on the 15th of January when the normal offer rounds release as part of the SATAC application process. So please do keep that in mind and just make sure that that preferred course is your top preference. If you are a little bit confused about that as well, you can give us a ring. We do have an enrollment team here to help you out in terms of how you can organize your preferences and answer some questions that you have. It's also why we actually have that extended phone period at the moment as well. Now, there are some other options that you can have a look at as well, including two very specific ways, which would be your Research Project B, which we do, again, automatically consider. So it's going to be your ATAR score and 40% of your research project performance combined. And we'll kind of give it a 60-40 split for you. If it's not as good as your ATAR score was, we'll still just look at your ATAR score, that's fine. Again, we'll use whatever's most favorable. And you can also use the Elite Athletes Admission Pathway schedule or scheme, as well. So if you are a competitor or you're an athlete and you play at a state level or above during 2020, regardless of the fact that if your comps were cancelled or postponed, as long as you were selected on a team, we'll still consider you because you've had training commitments across the year as well, and you'll be able to gain an invitation or selection on the team there during your time throughout year 12. So do keep that in mind. If you were an elite athlete but you didn't get to play, you still had to put in the effort and the work, so you are still eligible for that. And applications for that as well, by the way, are at obviously flinders.edu.au/elite athlete. Chelsea is actually quite knowledgeable about this particular pathway as well, should you have any questions for her. Now, I actually had a student call up today that had this exact question. They did a little bit better than they expected, and they kind of wanted to understand what they should be doing. So this is Robert. Robert did exceptionally well on his ATAR, actually. He did much better than he thought he would. Robert got a 99.5, and he felt some pressures, I guess, to spend his ATAR and apply for law or medicine, but he actually pursued his passion in commerce, which, usually and predominantly isn't exactly the highest ATAR scoring course requirement, and he gained employment with Uber, actually, before he even finished his graduation ceremony here at Flinders University. He's obviously since graduated clearly with a Bachelor of Commerce, and he's actually had multiple roles within the company in itself, and he's actually launched Uber Rides and Uber Eats across 5 markets in Australia, including the first global pilot, if anyone's ever gone to Sydney, to use Uber Comfort, and has won a secondment to go to Mexico in 2019 to lead Uber Bus as an incubation period. So he's actually done a lot. So Uber's a pretty big company. I'm sure that everyone's used Uber Eats at some point. That's all thanks to Robert, just following his passion and his dreams. But realistically, honestly, an ATAR score, as I mentioned earlier, it's calculated based on the popularity of the course and how many places we have available realistically. So don't feel like, the course that I'm doing doesn't have a really high ATAR, therefore it's not hard or I'm not smart for doing it. That's absolutely not the case whatsoever. So please do keep your preferences in order of your passion, not your ATAR necessarily. If you happen to have a change of heart and you happen to also get a better ATAR, no one's going to judge you for changing it, but don't feel like you have to. Remember that. So there are some example pathways as well that you can use within university outside of your ATAR score, sort of once you've gained entry into uni. Obviously, if you're looking for certain entry areas into certain fields, we can also help guide you as well with the student team here at Flinders. There's some example pathways that we have on the board here. Obviously, a Bachelor of Science, Forensics and Analytical Science. This is conveniently actually labelled a pathway, but something like the Bachelor of Law and Society, for example, doesn't have that labelling on it, but it is a pathway into law and legal practice. So if you are looking for a specific degree and you didn't quite get the score that you are looking for, please do check into some of the different areas and locations that we can guide you towards, or different courses, to give you the best opportunity to transfer into that course whilst you're here at university. So there are some other options that you can take as well outside of obviously transferring internally or doing your regular SATAC application, and that is your dual offers. So your dual offers are a single application for both a TAFE diploma and a Flinders degree, and you'll start with your TAFE diploma and you'll continue to do that across your time. And then, oops, I think I've actually turned my video off. Apologies, I don't realize that I did that. Sorry. So you'll be doing a TAFE SA diploma and Flinders degree across your time here. And the proviso, I guess, is that you complete your SA diploma and then you go on to your Flinders degree. And as long as you've completed one of the two, it should sort of continue on and flow through. But you just have to make sure that you maintain that passing grade. Do also consider listing it as an additional preference as a bit of a backup option for the degree that you're looking at as well, as it can be quite beneficial to sort of back up your preferences that way. And we do also have the Flinders Foundation program. So the Flinders Foundation program is an exclusive pathway, I guess, to Flinders itself, which is a free preparation program for anyone looking to get into university study. It can be between 4 to 7 months, and there are a few different locations available for that. But the general gist there is that it will take you through a few different areas within Flinders University and the different sort of courses that we do here, as well as a bit of literacy and numeracy skill sets, I suppose, and kind of reviewing a bit of university as a whole. So if you are kind of a little bit not scared, if you're a little bit unprepared, I guess, or a little bit unsure, it's a good way to work out whether or not you're ready to start university or whether it's suitable for you. Now, Flinders Link kind of ties in a little bit with your dual offers as well, to be honest, but it basically uses any qualifications that you had previously or that you might have done throughout your high school career as a entry pathway into Flinders as well. So your GPAs is your guaranteed link, and that's your transfers. But you can also use something like a Cert 2 or a Cert 3 or a Cert 4 or even a diploma if you have it, depending on what courses you have. Most of the courses that we have available have something between a Cert 4 and a diploma or advanced diploma guaranteed link between your TAFE links and your Flinders degrees. But the actual Flinders link themselves, if I just skip back one there, if you're looking at transferring, whoops, a little bit too far. So if you're looking at transferring, which is what I was explaining on this particular slide here, let's say you've got your Bachelor of Law and Society and looking to do law and legal practices, that's where these GPAs come in here. So if I achieve a GPA of, let's say, 5, which is a credit average, and I'm doing my Bachelor of Law and Society, and then I realize, I want to transfer into law and legal practices, which, as we know, is a pathway from our Law and Society degree. That GPA of 5 is the requirement to actually transfer into your preferred course of law and legal practices, and that's sort of how that process works. Now, there are guaranteed entry that applies for students who have completed at least 1 year of full-time study. So it kind of depends on what level you're looking for, I guess, on what you're applying for as well. Each degree has its own sort of GPA requirements, so they're a little bit dynamic that way. So if you're kind of looking for that number, you can call us and ask us about that as well. Now, accepting offers and enrolling is definitely something that students do get a little bit confused about, especially on when they get their offers as well. So generally speaking, they're going to be sent to you by SATAC, unless you've applied directly to us for very, very, very select courses. And if it's your first preference, you'll get accepted automatically. Now, preference 2 to 6, you'll need to respond to, and this is where things get a little bit complicated. So you can choose to just straight accept your degree, and that's perfectly fine. You can just say, yes, I'm happy to do preference 2, great, and that's perfect. If you choose to accept your degree, but you also wish to be considered for a higher preference, so you got number 2, but you really wanted number 1, you can accept it, but wish to be considered for a higher preference. And that's what a lot of students end up doing as well, and it's completely fine and viable to do so. It's not going to impact your ability to receive another offer in any sort of way. If you reject your offer, then that offer's gone. You can't really recover that. It's a little bit harder. But you can also reject an offer and wish to be considered for higher preferences as well. Most of the time, usually students will either be accepting but consider themselves for higher preferences. That's generally how it goes. Now, you can also defer your offer. For those of you who don't know what a deferral is, it means that you can also, you basically pause your current offer and where it is. So if I say, hey, it's 2021 at this point next year, would you like to study Bachelor of X? And you can say, yes, I do, but maybe I want to start it in 2022. That's fine as well. We can kind of reserve your place for the year, and then you can start it the year after if you wish to do some things with your time. Maybe you want to work, maybe you want to travel. That's completely up to you, but that's completely viable. And that's essentially the system here. I do have Celeste, as I mentioned earlier. She's just been sitting quietly off screen.
Gonna roll in. Hi guys.
And she's just got some information for you as a student, I guess, that's graduated fairly recently about Flinders and sort of how it works and sort of the general lifestyle.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks, Jonathan.
That's right.
Lovely. I'll roll in.
That's right. I'll swap with you.
Oh, lovely. Thanks for having me here today, guys. So, as Jonathon said, I'm a student here at Flinders University, and I personally graduated from Cardine College in 2018. So, when it's sort of coming up towards my Year 12 graduation, I did not have any idea what I wanted to do after Year 12. I was pretty convinced that I wanted to go to university because it was something that my older sister had done, my family had done, and I figured I wanted to continue my studies. But I didn't know where that was going to take me and where I was going to go. So, I was very much envious of anyone who did know. But essentially, I just ensured that I went to all the open days and information nights. I read a lot of brochures. I know Flinders University came and visited us at the college, and that really helped. And believe me, I had a lot of phone calls and a lot of questions to all of our ambassadors here that were helping out as well. So essentially, I just decided that I was going to choose a degree that was really interesting to me personally at the time, knowing that I can sort of change up along the lines as well. So what path did I take? I decided I was sort of, to take it back a little bit, in 2018 a Bachelor of Tourism and Events was being advertised as a new degree in 2019. It was something that I couldn't ask previous students about, but it definitely caught my attention. So I very much was intrigued by the opportunities that may be presented from that degree, given that it's very much an ever-changing industry. And at the moment, with everything going on, obviously it hasn't changed for the better, but I'm sure it's going to start coming up on the other side of that, which is actually really exciting for me now anyway. I guess to go with that, I also wanted to choose a bit of a safe option, as some may say, which for me was a Bachelor of Business. Now, I initially started in Human Resource Management. I was looking at all the different specialisations. Human Resource Management is a specialisation within a business degree, and there is many options to choose from. And I was sort of flicking through them all and decided that that one sounds like something I could be interested in, so I went for it. I studied my first year and I loved both of my degrees, but I was a little bit unsure about my specialisation. So I've just completed my second year, and throughout my second year I actually did an internal transfer to instead have a specialisation of Innovation and Enterprise, which just goes to show, I guess, that you can change things up and tweak things along the way. And for me, that hasn't actually extended my study length at all. So in total, my course is 4 years, and that hasn't changed from me doing that little change as well, that little swap up. Keeping in mind that depending on what you do, potentially change into could alter your study period length. But for me, it was something that I was sure that I wanted to do, and I've absolutely loved that little change that I made as well. So from there, I guess I'm continually each year doing a new timetable. For me, I've been very, very lucky in my study load. So up on the screen at the moment, I have essentially my timetable for semester 1 next year. Now, along the way, obviously, as I said, I changed my specialisation, so my study load has changed slightly with the sort of the swapping over of specialisations, but essentially this is my timetable for a double degree. As you can see, it's very reasonable, and I do have a lot of spare time. So what you're seeing up there at the moment is all the white space is all my free time, my time to work, my time to have fun with friends, do what I want to do, socialise. And essentially that's a timetable for 4 topics for a full-time study load. And keep in mind, this again will vary depending on what degree you choose. I know I was speaking to Jonathon the other day. My sister was actually studying medical science in her first year a little while back. And she couldn't believe that my timetable would look quite like this, studying a double degree. So keep in mind, it will definitely alter for everyone, but it's really important to know that it's manageable to work and socialise and have a bit of a sort of personal life, work, university balance. So within that, I actually personally, obviously I have the full-time study load, but I do actually fit in 2 days of work as well as a day here at Flinders University as a student ambassador. And I'm able to be a little bit flexible with my university timetable as well between obviously each semester, which is fantastic. So, that really sums it up, I guess, for me, just trying to give you a bit of an idea that it is manageable to study at Flinders University full-time for one, and important to know that you can swap that up between full-time study load and part-time, even between semesters. So again, I guess I'll open it up to any questions that you guys may have. If there is any, as a past student, I've just finished my second year and I still have many questions. I'm still emailing, calling the same team here just for advice. So if anyone has any questions, and if not, I'll just pass on to Jonathon. Give him a moment.
I
think we're okay.
No, that's right. I might just expand the chat box for you so we can actually see
yes, fantastic.
There we go.
Fantastic, thank you.
Sorry.
Lovely. Nothing coming through?
coming through. Give it a minute. Sometimes it takes a while to type, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's right. Typing takes a while. Oh, sorry, there's one. What? So I'll just read it out. I'm not sure. Can everyone see the chat box?
They should be able to.
Okay,
Yeah.
oh, I'll read it out anyway. So what practical experience have you enjoyed? So obviously university life for me, there has been a lot of experiences along the way throughout my university studies, which I think a lot of students would have experienced in some ways, and a few that are probably a little bit more niche that not everyone will experience, but you definitely have the opportunity to experience. So for me personally, I am a student ambassador here at Flinders University, which is how I found myself here today presenting to you. So for me, that means that I have sort of an opportunity to involve myself in a bit of the behind the scenes of university life as well. So I guess that's, advising you guys, which I absolutely love. I love passing on my knowledge. But it also includes things like hosting our open days or events around the college as well, which is fantastic. I had an event the other night, was the opening of the wine sensory room, which I highly recommend visiting if you have an interest in business as I do. I would definitely consider looking at one of our new degrees as well, which is International Business, Wine, Tourism and Spirits. I may have got the title a little bit mixed up there, but it's something along that line. So I've enjoyed a lot of different opportunities. I think for me, a lot of it has come from my ambassador role. Obviously, with COVID this year, a lot of university events have unfortunately been postponed or cancelled for the year. But in my first year, the university life and the college campus is buzzing with essentially life, and there's always something on and plenty of people to meet. So I think just getting into university and getting yourself involved as many different opportunities, different clubs as you possibly can is definitely something I'd recommend. So hopefully that's helped answer your question a little bit. There's another one here. How do you go about choosing your topics? So so depending on what you're doing, if you're doing a combined degree or if you're doing just a set degree, what will generally happen is you'll receive a study plan. So it will be from first year all the way to third, fourth, how many years you're doing, and it will give you an outline of all the topics you need to complete in each year. From there, you actually have access on your student system, which is on your Okta dashboard, so I'm sure that's something you'll learn all about. On there, you can actually generate your own personal timetable. So for example, here you can see on the screen, tour, which is tourism, so tourism 2101. For that topic, there may be 2 or 3 seminars held at different periods, and I can select one of those that suits me. So that's what I mean when I say you have that flexibility. There isn't always one workshop or tutorial held. There's often numerous. For example, tutorials may have up to 10 different time slots that you can choose. So you just have to go on. You need to make sure you're picking the topics from your study plan to essentially work throughout your topics that you need to complete. And then once you choose your topic, you just have to select a time slot within your timetable that suits you. So really flexible. And again, that is something that I'm still end of second year, and I still almost need someone hovering over my shoulder to make sure I'm doing it right. But there's plenty of support here at Flinders Connect. You're able to come in person, and they can actually help you generate your timetable, or over the phone as well. Something that I needed a lot of help, particularly when I swapped over my degrees as well. So. Can you please tell me what is the average ATAR for medicine and what is the UCAT average? Off the top of my head, we might have to come back to that one possibly. Do you happen to know, Jonathon?
I do know this is probably a big question, yeah. Realistically, the average ATAR for medicine and the average UCAT is sort of a bit mixed. The UCAT I can't answer because we actually don't know what the average is. But the average ATAR or anecdotally at least, all the students that I've talked to that have gained entry into the med program have something between a 96 to a 99.95. So generally speaking, as we know, it's going to be a 90-10% split between your medicine ATAR and your UCAT score. So there is a lot that goes into calculating that, and there's a lot of play that goes into your UCAT and ATAR combination. So I can't give you like if you get this, then you've got a really good chance, because there's a likely chance that, you could get 99 and then go terribly, unfortunately, in the UCAT, and then, sit you way below someone else. But anecdotally, completely unofficially, your ATAR for medicine generally speaking, the students that I talk to have somewhere between a 98 to 99 generally, and they've done pretty good in the UK. It's obviously the most competitive course that we have at Flinders University, and I'm sure that you're under no illusions that that exists and that competitiveness is there. So just try your very, very best and just hope to go. Should be fine.
Thanks,
Sorry.
Jonathan. No, not at all. No, I needed that extra help.
That's fine.
So I think we're up to, so do certain courses undergo activities off campus often? For me, not too many of my topics have had off-campus components, and if they do, it's usually something that you're obviously told far in advance so that you can ensure that you need to get to that place that you're meeting at. For me, I do remember one of my tourism topics in my first year, I believe it was, actually had it was actually at Adelaide Oval, and it was a tour of Adelaide Oval, which was fantastic because I actually hadn't seen it yet myself. So that was something that we went off campus for, and it was scheduled in our timetable, and we all met there and had a sort of a tourism experience essentially. So that was an example of where you may find yourself going off, depending on obviously what degree you're studying. Another big one is of course placements. That's very much off campus 90% of the time, unless you're in campus. So that would be something that you'd go to a company or a business, and you'd obviously be there for your placement period. So other than that, it really is dependent on your degree, and I can only obviously speak for sort of the tourism and business, but there is opportunities there, absolutely, and plenty of opportunities as well to volunteer yourself in different, volunteer events and work around the university, which may involve some off-campus components as well. So yeah, so I'm sorry I can only speak on what I'm studying, but definitely there are opportunities for it as well. Okay, just having a read through. Sorry, guys. What is your advice when adjusting in the first months of uni? That's a really good question. So definitely is a little bit of a shock to the system. I won't tell any white lies. It definitely is something that you have to adjust to, absolutely. I found myself, even from buying a new laptop to trying to navigate my way around the campus, quite overwhelming at first, I must admit. I did have the support from my older sister who was already studying at Flinders University, so she very much had my back. But it's something that you kind of essentially just, you've got to get everything together, you just got to take a deep breath, and it's actually, there are so many support groups here at Flinders University, from simply your tutorial group to previous friends to the staff up in Flinders Connect. There is a lot of support networks at the university that can support you through that. So if you rock up to your first class, assuming that you've managed to find your way there, which a really helpful tip for that is Lost on Campus, which is a little app on your phone, and it's pretty much Google Maps for the campus, so I highly recommend grabbing that one. So once you get there, you can always just say to your tutorial teacher, look, obviously I've got no idea what I'm doing, give me a rundown. And as well, what's really, peace of mind is in your first year topics, 90% of the time you'll have your tutorial or your tutorial teacher or your lecturer going through step by step how to use Flow, for example. So Flow is, I think that is changing up a little bit going into the next few years.
A smidge, yeah.
A little smidgen. But Flow is something that I've used myself over the last 2 years, where you watch all of your lectures, you can obviously download all of your assignment work, and it's your little hub. It's also where you submit your assignment. So they'll take you through how to use those different programs as well. So adjusting takes time, but it's no different to adjusting anywhere else. It just is something that I guess you have to get your head around. But absolutely, there is a support here at Flinders University. I can absolutely 100% say that, which is great. As well, let's have another look. That's from Chelsea. I was like, hang on a minute. Sorry, Chelsea. Yeah, fantastic. I think we're actually okay.
Great.
And that's it for now.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
We'll
swap back in.
Yeah, you can stay integrated, it's fine.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Enjoy it. Now, there are some key dates that I think most students should know. So please keep these in mind. Obviously, your essay and NT Year 12 results released on the 15th. We know this. We've all received these. That's great. There is a change of preference deadline, and that's really, really big. So at the moment, obviously, students are contacting us, and you might be contacting us as well about, hey, what do I need to do about this?
Yeah.
Or my ATAR is different from what I thought it was going to be. What kind of solutions do you have now for my preferences? You can change your preferences on your SATEC application until the 7th of January, and then after that, you've just been locked out, and essentially until the main offer round on the 15th of January. So at any point between now and then, you can keep flipping those around between 1 to 6 as many times as you like, but please keep in mind that the 7th of January is a hard cutoff, unfortunately. So just make sure that you give it a good old think before that day, and you should be okay. Obviously, the main offer round comes out on the 15th, and this is when the excitement happens and you get your offers. And that will happen through SATAC and through, I guess, all the universities should be releasing their degrees. And then there's more offer rounds essentially rolling all the way through until February. February the 22nd for Flinders at least will be our orientation week. I, again, highly recommended that you go. And then the 1st of March should be week 1, semester 1. And that will be happening as part of the general, I guess, the university timeline. All universities should be starting in March, so that's generally happening. Now, a bit of a Year 12 checklist for yourself. So if you need some help, please give us a call on 1300 354 633 and select option 1. Alternatively, if that's a bit hard for you to remember or you can't take a screenshot of it, you can just call 1300 Flinders. That also works. It's completely fine. You can use us to check your adjustment factors to see what your new adjusted score is. We can discuss how the uni test results might be there to assist you if you obviously sat the uni test. As I mentioned, find out the best way to order your preferences. If you would like to attend another webinar session or book a campus tour as well, so sessions like these, sort of informative little bits and pieces, they are found on flinders.edu.au/webinars. And to book a campus tour, you can always go to flinders.edu.au/year 12. Now, the campus tours are actually kind of fun. I get to do them as long as the rest of the OSR team is not here. Alternatively, we'll kind of just rotate it around. But generally speaking, like, it's a walk around of the campus to give you a bit of an idea of what campus is like, what campus life is like, and get an understanding of where everything is. If you've been to the Bedford Park campus before at Flinders, it is quite large. So it does pay to go on the tour occasionally if you like to. And we'll give you some maps and some advice and stuff as well. Great. Have you received a conditional offer for Year 11? I'll just skip to the next one because we are pretty much on the question slide now anyway. If you do need to find out more, like I mentioned, obviously hit the prospective students team. That's where we are. Just give us a ring or email askflinders@flinders.edu.au. We're on a question slide. Great. Excellent. So what is the process for applying for HEX? Now, HEX is fun. So basically, when you go to enroll, it's going to ask you how you'd like to pay for your subjects, basically. As you're charged on a topic basis, so you're not charged on a degree basis, keep that in mind as well. That's a big one that people forget. If you're a part-time student, for example, you'll be, let's say you go exactly 50% of your time. So if it's a 3-year degree, it's going to take you 6 years. You're going to be doing 2 topics per semester. When you enroll into those topics, you'll be charged your fee, essentially. And if you choose to defer that fee, that is essentially applying for HEX. Now, there's a few different things you're going to have to fill in. You're going to need a tax file number. So if you don't have a tax file number, please get a tax file number. That's vital.
Yes.
But the process for it is fairly streamlined from that point on. There's some prompts there to help you out and a form that you're going to have to fill in just initially, and then you can just defer it onto your HEX, and that's generally speaking quite fine. And we can help you with the HEX process as well if you need to call us again on that 1300 Flinders number. If you've received a conditional offer from Year 11, that will not be retracted, essentially, if you change your preferences. It depends on what the top preference is. So, like officially speaking, you need to have your conditional offer from Flinders as your first preference, unless your first preference or the preferences above it are essentially Flinders exclusive topics. So those topics that you can't use your conditional offer for. So your Masters of Physiotherapy, Bachelors of Health Science, for example, that is excluded. So if that's above your conditional offer, you can put your conditional offer below that, obviously, because that's what you have to physically do. I think at the moment, honestly, the general advice that we're giving students is that if you are looking to use a conditional offer from Flinders, though, and you put an A course from Flinders again higher than your conditional offer, generally speaking, we're taking the approach that we still want to honour that conditional offer for you, as long as the alternative solutions that are higher than your conditional offer are also Flinders courses. So if you've got like an Adelaide or a UniSA preference above ours, we may not be able to hold on to that offer for you, but I'm assuming that if that's the case, you're probably looking at a different degree or a different course or a different campus, so that shouldn't be too bad, but technically we won't retract it as long as you meet certain prerequisite requirements. Some major tips for uni or major advice to give about starting uni. So I can tell you my anecdotal information about my uni experience, and Celeste can kind of go over starting and what she's done. I did uni a little while ago now. I'm a bit old and ancient. I know. I've aged well. But in reality, honestly, time management is usually the biggest thing that I and a lot of students found as a key factor. A lot of students from year 12 in high school may be under the assumption that doing your assignment on like the last day that it's due is still a possible potential option for you. Please don't do this.
I've tried it.
Yeah, tried it.
It doesn't work.
If you're late or you have an issue uploading it and you miss the deadline, there are actual serious consequences for it. Your teacher won't follow you up for it. You'll just miss the deadline and you'll either be penalised or you'll fail that topic. Or not the topic, but the assignment. So some courses have just, okay, you've missed the deadline, that's a 0 no matter what, or there's like a 10% reduction in your grade
Each
per day that
yeah.
you miss it, which is huge, which is massive, especially when some of these assignments are like 60% of your total grade for that topic. So that's my advice, is time management, and just like you can see your entire semester's category of like when your assignments are all going to be due when you start. So you can kind of plan that out in your head straight from the get-go, especially if you've got a really good timetable like Celeste did. I guess your experience starting uni.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of pinched the second one there. No. So I would absolutely say the same. As Jonathon said, you can see all of your assignments, all your quizzes, exams. Sorry, I do take that back. Exam times and dates you may not have yet, but you can know that they're coming. You can plan everything out. Grab a diary, grab one of those massive calendars that you can put on your desk, and just jot down everything where it's due. And when I'm really organised, I haven't done it every semester, when I'm organised, I'll even put reminders on my phone calendar so it can remind me, a week before, just in case that's completely spaced. A big difference from, I think, high school to university is that your lecturer isn't going to be there every step of the way saying, have you started that assignment? Okay, your assignment's due in 1 week. Your assignment's due in 3 days. So it's a little bit of something to adjust to, because, as Jonathan said, time management is vital because you're responsible for your own work. It's very much like working in a workplace. You are responsible to get your task done by the allocated due date. So definitely jotting things down when they're done, just so you can effectively forget them, so your phone can remind you. And another really big one is I would set up some key practices at the start of your semester. I must admit it's going to be a little bit tricky easing into it, particularly first semester. But if you can decide, you've got this notepad and you're going to jot down all your lecture notes in there, your quizzes, you're going to do those, you're going to prep for them in this way. If you can set up some really good just practices, general practices, it will help you so much in the long run. Definitely something that I would say generally. Just set yourself up. Don't try and jump in, not knowing how you're going to take notes, for example. Have a notepad, have a pen, and just be ready to go. Try and set yourself up as best as you can before getting into it, I think I'd say.
Fun little pro tip as well.
Yes.
Your assignments obviously will be due on week blah, right? Let's say we have an assignment due on week 6. Most of the time, the weeks leading up to that assignment, the topics that you cover in your lectures will be relevant to your assignment.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you do want to get a head start, the lectures are kind of already there before you start. I actually had one student, a friend of mine now, but one student that I went to uni with that just read all of the course material before the course started, and then he just did an assignment in the holidays. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah. So that's very much an option to do. In terms of the offers being sent out, sorry, I will clarify that one for you. So I'm assuming you're speaking about the Year 11 offers when you're talking about receiving a course that's lower ATAR than you had, I guess. Is that what you're concerned about, Eleni, sorry? Is it the Year 11 offers? Okay, in terms of order of preferences, yeah. So it's a bit tricky, but basically what generally speaking happens it's on an individual basis. You're right, Chelsea. Thank you. It is, but it is very much. There's a few key factors put into it, like how many spaces we have available, what kind of preferences people have put their preferences in, what kind of ATAR that you got. There's many variables to it as well. When I talk about rolling ATARs or rolling offer rounds, if you receive an offer later on in the round, and you're kind of like, oh, why is it so late? It might have been because you might not have quite been at the upper echelons of who got the offer initially, but then someone might have accepted a different offer or deferred or rejected an offer, and then it's kind of rolled down the list. And then you'll receive an offer a little bit later. Is that what you're referring to, sorry? Or is that, I'm just trying to piece that together a little bit. But generally speaking, like your preferences on SATAC though, like 1 to 6 is your individual preferences. So your first preference should be the course, obviously, that you want to get into the most, and your 6th preference should be the course that you want to get into the least most, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I think if you think of it as in, I had tourism as my first preference and Jonathon had business as his first preference, even if my ATAR was lower, I would still, if I'm eligible to get into my first preference, I'll get into it, you know, and if business was my second, or there isn't really an easy way of trying to put it into, you know, over the phone. I guess we can talk you through it on an individual basis, but essentially you just have to know that the university looks at you and tries to give you, your individual, the best possible outcome based on your preferences. So SATAC will always look at your first preference before your second, third onwards, really.
It was Zeneb. All right. Zeneb, I know I work at Flinders, so I'm probably a little bit biased in terms of should you go to Flinders. So from a Flinders staff perspective, yes, is the answer. From a personal perspective of someone that works in the university space, it kind of depends realistically. If we offer a course for you that suits your needs and requirements and you're really happy with the way our courses operate, I would highly recommend putting a Flinders application in, obviously. I can tell you from what I know amongst the universities, all the universities in South Australia are really fantastic, just in general. Like, none of us are bad, but we all have our unique way of doing things and obviously unique places that we have our courses and our campuses themselves, are situated in different areas. Obviously, you know, the Bedford Park campus is located next to Flinders Medical Centre, so by default we have a lot of really, really great, fantastic medical equipment with us. Other universities might have other specialities as well. So it depends, I guess, on the degree. By default, flat average, I believe that Flinders University is a fantastic university in itself. It's probably quite a long answer to sort of go through it and sort of talk really, really in depth about it. But it realistically depends on what you're looking for. But as a general, I would say yes, Flinders University is a great university, and absolutely you should obviously apply. The next one there is, how does the Bachelor of Letters work? Okay, so the Bachelor of Letters works in 2 ways. Depending on if that's already been answered. Oh, excellent, cool. So the Bachelor of Letters works in 2 ways. There's the General Bachelor of Letters, and then there's the Graduate Entry Bachelor of Letters. Now, your General Bachelor of Letters is kind of like an additional bachelor's degree that you can put in with your already existing degree that you're doing. If you're coming from straight into an undergraduate degree, it can be done across your degree, and you kind of pepper in some of these subjects as you go. So it will expand the length of time that your degree takes. If you choose to do it as a graduate entry, it means that you do all of those topics in 1 year as a block. So you can do basically an entire degree in a year. But each of the areas, I guess, within the Bachelor of Letters allows you to specialize in different areas. So, for example, there's a Bachelor of Letters, in Health Sciences. So I can just be like, I'm doing my Bachelor's of Accounting, but I have a passion for health sciences, so I'll do a Bachelor's of Letters in Health Sciences. But a whole bunch of those different areas exist within the Bachelor of Letters. You can do like different languages as well. Languages is generally what a lot of people do combine it with, because they're just like, I want to do a language, but I don't want to do a Bachelor of Languages. Help. That's generally a really, really popular one. But there's actually tons of different areas within the Bachelor of Letters that you can obviously take that opportunity to learn. So if you have some questions about that and you want to get in touch with us, we can go through all of the Bachelor Letter options. But basically, it's either its own independent add-on addition to your degree, or it's sort of intertwined into the degree that you're already doing. Anyone else have any other questions at all before we kind of just sit around? We'll answer some more questions as best we can, and then we can kind of close it down, but we won't obviously do that until everyone's all happy to go. Cool. I might just turn off the camera here so we're not just sort of staring at you for a little bit. That's all good. But we'll continue to sit here and answer some questions as best as we can. Obviously, we can answer verbally. We can also type back to you if you like. We're happy to help, just in general. And hopefully the information on the webinar has been quite useful for you. I do understand that Year 12, especially this year, has been a bit challenging. So it's been an interesting year for a lot of people. So we've just got a question here. If I received a conditional offer and then met the requirements for that offer, does that mean I get into the course? So if you've received a conditional offer and you've met the requirements for the conditional offer, it's been placed as your first preference, or you've met the requirements for our placement preferences, and you have completed SACE, that's the other important one, so you had to have completed SACE, you should receive your conditional offer as a formal offer on the 15th of January in the main offer round. So I do know a lot of students have been contacting us. There are no conditional offers for medicine, no. I do know a lot of students that have been contacting us just because their ATAR has been a little bit lower than they've been hoping for, but they do have that conditional offer. And yes, I can definitely say that that is a legitimate thing. You, as long as you've met all the normal entry requirements for the conditional offers and it's all been done correctly, you will still receive that conditional offer, yes. And so, yes, Brandon, there unfortunately is no conditional offers for medicine. There are some excluded courses that we had on the list for the Year 11 conditional offer pathways. Medicine, I believe, was on them, as well as some double degree options that we have, like physiotherapy or occupational therapy. But there are a few on that list. So unfortunately not. Medicine is also has some additional entry requirements like a UCAT, as you are probably aware as well. We do have a... I'm just thinking about it now. We do have a person, I guess, on campus that is also supposed to basically answer all medicine inquiries a bit more in depth if you do have a lot of medicine questions. Yeah, so if you want to go a little more in depth of that, I obviously can talk to you a little bit more now. But if you want to have a chat with someone or book in a time to talk to someone about medicine, we're also happy to do that for you as well, Brandon. As if I've applied for Year 11 results, my Year 12 results. So if your Year 12 results are better, it kind of depends. Like if your conditional offer is your first offer, you'll still get it anyway.
Yeah.
But if you've got a preference 1 and your conditional offer was for a preference 2, and your results for Year 12 are good enough, to get you into your preference 1, you can still receive an offer for your preference 1. So it's completely fine. It kind of just depends on what you'd like to do. A lot of people have been treating their conditional offer as a safeguard, and that's also fine to do. Realistically, like if you've aced your ATAR, and you know that you've received 99.95, and you're pretty much in a situation where like there's no way possible that you can get a better result, you don't really have to worry too much about that conditional offer at that point. It's kind of just sort of there as a very sort of last minute chain of lock-ins just in case. It's very much a backup option for you, yeah. I missed the information about medicine. So we didn't actually go into any in-depth medicine information today. We've just sort of touched on it a few times. But in general, the information that you should have received today was the additional requirements for medicine, which is obviously doing that UCAT, and the potential that knowing that, generally speaking, our medicine applicants do have quite a high ATAR. It is a very competitive course, as I'm assuming that you know. If you don't, it is a very competitive course, and it is a 90-10 split between your ATAR and your UCAT score as a combined score as well. If you've been teaching OT for a while, realistically, the occupational therapy subjects that you'll be doing with us will be predominantly done obviously in your 4th and 5th year when you actually start your Masters of occupational therapy. We do now have the health sciences stream for therapy studies, which is really, really good. Honestly, we've basically broken down our health sciences into individual streams and areas because we know that the allied health areas is quite open-ended. And, it's nice to know that every single student has been taught this grand foundation here about health sciences, but we also understand that as an OT student, you doing 3 years of just general health sciences could potentially be quite boring for you. And also just not super practical for what your goal and needs are. So we've actually redeveloped all of those into their own streams. Obviously, the one that's most relevant for you is therapy studies, which gives you more opportunity to take on more therapy studied topics, I guess, or topic geared towards getting you into physiotherapy and occupational therapy. And then you've got your very large practium, so your practice and placement hours in your 4th and 5th years as well. Generally speaking, the way we teach occupational therapy is basically just inbuilt into what we know is scientifically correct knowledge and is evidence-based practice. All of the lecturers that you will have all obviously work in the field, and to maintain their place as a lecturer and as an academic at Flinders University, they're constantly undertaking more and more, academic study, and ensuring that the information that they're providing you is correct, is researched, and is current. So I guess that is how Flinders does it. Unfortunately, I'm not extremely in the know, I guess, about how University of South Australia does theirs, but I can tell you how Flinders University does ours. Right, so course deferrals. Generally speaking, you can defer a course for 2 years if it's an undergrad. If it's a postgraduate course, you can't defer it at all. Unfortunately, postgraduate courses aren't deferrable. And honours courses generally can't be deferred if it's a solo honours course by itself. So, for example, the psychological science honours, which is just the 1-year honours course that we have, unfortunately can't be deferred, but there is a Bachelor of Psychological Science with honours that you can apply for from an undergraduate level, which you can defer that 4th honours year. So, generally speaking, 2 years. If it's an honours course, technically no, unless you're in a very specific honours course, and postgraduate courses cannot be deferred. Okay.
How far into a degree do you have to wait until you can transfer? Really, as long as you're, for example, for me, I didn't necessarily change my degree. I did still have to apply for an internal transfer, but it was just changing my specialisation. So in terms of how far into it, you could decide in the first 3 weeks that you decide that you don't like that degree and you'd like to go on to study something else, but you won't be able to just necessarily do a quick swap into it. You'll have to wait for the soonest offer round. So, for example, if your course has a mid-year offer round, so for a July intake, you can apply for that total transfer once they're open, and fingers crossed you obviously get into that for a mid-year intake. But keeping in mind that not all courses do actually have mid-year intake, so I would recommend if you've got a couple of other courses in mind, obviously we don't always know whether we're going to like something or not, but just keep in mind that if you're looking to do an internal transfer into a mid-year, you have to ensure that it actually has a mid-year intake. But otherwise, essentially, I mean, you don't have to wait a certain period of time. Am I right, Jonathan?
No, in theory, yeah. It's just the 1 semester. As long as it's a full-time study load, you've done 4 subjects or more, and you've generated your GPA, you are eligible to apply. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's until you decide you'd like to do one.
Basically. That can also work in your favour. So paramedic science is a really great example of this. It doesn't have a mid-year entry, and a lot of students end up doing health sciences and know that they can generate a GPA after 6 months. So they usually do it part-time. And then they do 2 topics per semester and just absolutely annihilate them and just get this amazing ATAR, and then they transfer into it in the new semester 1 of 2022, essentially the next year. In terms of medicine, so if you are looking at how long your ATAR is valid for, so fun fact, did you all know that your ATAR is not ever really going to expire until you hit a particular requirement? Yeah. So just based on time, your ATAR is valid indefinitely. But if you were to do 2 years or essentially 18 topics, or 16 topics, sorry, if my maths is correct, 2 lots of 8. 16 topics, your ATAR will no longer be valid after you complete that 16th topic. So you'll just be based on your GPA after completing the 16th topic. So you can do up to 15 topics. And still have an ATAR and a GPA. So yes, if you had a very competitive ATAR and you wanted to apply as an undergraduate, but you wanted to resit the UCAT, you can just wait and sit it again and then apply next year. As a side note, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, your clinical sciences Doctor of Medicine degree is going to take you 6 years via undergraduate, and it will take you 7 years if you do it as a postgraduate entry, which also means, though, that you can do a 3-year undergraduate degree in medical science or health sciences or any of the health areas that you wish, still have an additional qualification in case you wanted to enter the workforce and use that qualification whilst you're studying, and still complete your degree in the exact same amount of time it would take you to resit the UCAT next year, wait the year, and then do 6 years. So you'll still be doing it in 7 years in either instance, but in one scenario you will also have that additional qualification and potentially a little bit more medical knowledge as well before you actually enter the degree for the Doctor of Medicine. Just as a little...
Definitely something to consider.
Yeah, just as a little fun little game for you, just in case you want to try and work that one out. But yeah, Luke, obviously, yeah, it's a very interesting kind of way to get into medicine, I guess. Do keep in mind we do have reserved places for the postgraduate Doctor of Medicine for all Flinders graduates as well. That does play into your favour quite a bit. There's also usually sort of 2 to 3 times the amount of places available in the postgraduate version of Doctor of Medicine rather than the undergraduate as well, just for a little bit more of a competitive edge, I guess. Okay, no worries. Does anyone else have any other questions potentially for us? I know that the participant list is slowly being dropping down, but we still have 19 people here, so I assume that everyone wants to know a little bit more or wants to ask anything else. We're obviously happy to answer any questions.
I think just to mention as well, Jonathan,
Yeah.
as you said earlier, and I think Chelsea mentioned it as well in the chat, obviously if you have individual questions, I know it's also a little bit daunting to chuck your question when there's other people on the webinar. If you do have an individual question that you'd like to get some information on, we obviously had the number up before, 1300 Flinders.
That's the one.
Option 1, and you can have a chat to one of our student ambassadors or just student recruitment team here, and we'll be able to help you out for sure. Alternatively, there's also the Ask Flinders email address, so you can send through an email inquiry if that's something that you prefer. So I know it can be a little bit, as I said, daunting to put a question in front of everyone, but those options are always there.
Each course has its own, I guess, like an expiration timer almost, or an acceptance period. So they are a little bit dependent. When you get your letter of offer from us on the 15th, it will tell you exactly how long that period is for. If it's a really competitive course, it's generally quite a short amount of time. I'm not talking like a day or two, I'm talking like maybe a week. Or a couple of days, 5 days maybe. But things that are a little bit less competitive, so your more open-ended courses, something that maybe has a lot of places available, like nursing has a lot of places available. It may not be as competitive, and you might have a much larger window or potentially no expiration, I guess, on how long we can hold that place. So unfortunately, I can't officially tell you the time, but I can tell you that we'll definitely be in your letter of offer. Just give it a good read and just make sure that you're understanding on that. If you can't find it, you can also call us once you've gotten your letter of offer, and we can bring up the letter that we've sent you and sort of read it together and sort of go over that information with you. Now it is 2:00, and we'd love to stay and keep answering questions, and we're going to hope to as much as we can, but we might start trying to wrap things up in the next sort of 5 or 10 minutes. So I'll just sort of sit here and wait, obviously with Celeste, and we'll kind of answer as many questions as we can. But if you aren't planning on asking any questions today, I might just ask you to jump out of this meeting just so I can get a rough gauge of how many students potentially have some questions for us, and then I might just close that meeting up if that's okay with everyone. But thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you all. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having me here as well.
That's all right, no worries at all. And yeah, we'll just sort of just hang on tight for you and answer some questions as best we can.